Yo, what is up, guys? It's Cohen back here again today with another video. Before we get into it, I want to address the elephant in the room. That is, yes, it is MLB opening day, and yes, I'm wearing a Yankee shirt. So if you hate me, go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, comment below why you hate me, and continue watching the video. Yeah, just wanted to get that out of the way. I know a lot of people don't realize I'm a Yankees fan. Yeah, sorry. But anyways, getting into the actual video itself, today I want to talk to you guys about the buyout market in the NBA, and more importantly, the dichotomy that exists between large and small market NBA teams and why there's really no way to fix it. Even if you do reform the buyout market, there's really no way to fix the inequalities between the two teams. And I'll get into all of that in 1 second. But first, I do want to start with the buyout market, talk a little bit more about the buyouts of Andre Drummond, LaMarcus Aldridge, and Blake Griffin that ended up with them landing on the Lakers and then Griffin and Aldridge on the Brooklyn Nets. The two favorites in their respective conferences, at least when they're healthy, at least according to most people. Some people might think differently, but I would say if you polled pretty much every NBA fan, most people would imagine that's going to be a Lakers-Nets finals. And if I had to pick today, that's what I would pick. So these are two very big markets, obviously, New York and Los Angeles, California, two massive markets. And so small market GMs have started to talk about how there needs to be reform to the buyout market system because all these big names are going to large market teams. None of these players decide to go like to the Utah Jazz or the Phoenix Suns, even though Phoenix is a little bit bigger of a market than Utah might be. But no one went to these, I guess you could say, smaller market teams as opposed to going like a Los Angeles Lakers or a Brooklyn Nets. And so smaller market GMs are saying that, hey, we should reform the system somehow. There should be some kind of penalties. There should be limits and stuff like that. And all that's cool. I do think that there is a place for limitations on that. Maybe you could do something like you could limit how much you could offer a player if you picked up buyout players in previous seasons or something like that, to limit the amount of destinations that buyout players have in terms of just going to a contender and helping them stack up for a championship run. Maybe they would instead then go to a smaller market team that is trying to compete for a championship rather than going to one of those larger markets. And then if they wanted to sign there in free agency in that larger market in the offseason, they could then decide to do that. So maybe you could do something like that. Maybe you could put salary cap limitations on teams more, where you can't really sign players for minimums if they got bought out, or you have to pay a certain amount of their contract. So if you are hard capped, you can't afford them fully. You can't just offer them the minimum contract for the rest of the season, like a lot of buyout players do end up taking. So there's some possibilities there to limit things. The problem is it's really not that big of a deal. And I know Andre Drummond, LaMarcus Aldridge, Blake Griffin, those are big names, but it's going to be interesting to see how much of a role they actually play on their teams. I think that they are all impactful players. I think that when Anthony Davis and LeBron James come back, that Andre Drummond is going to be really effective. He wasn't very effective in his debut last night. He was dealing with the toe injury. Hope he's okay, but he wasn't super effective. I think when LeBron and Anthony Davis come back to take some of that pressure off him and get easier looks, help him kind of ease himself into the system more, I think Andre Drummond will be an impactful player. But for right now, I wouldn't say he's going to make or break the Lakers title run. I think that the Lakers could still win the title before they picked him up, and they can still win after they picked him up. Same thing with the Brooklyn Nets. LaMarcus Aldridge and Blake Griffin are really important pieces to have, and overall they can help you over the hump, but I don't think they made or broke the Nets title hopes. I think that they were already probably the favorites when they picked up James Harden. Obviously, these players don't hurt, but, I think that they were still the favorites before they picked them up. So that's something you do have to think about, is even though these are big names, how impactful are they going to be? All these guys, or at least Griffin and Aldridge, are pretty old, and Drummond hasn't been super effective in his recent career, although I do think there is a lot of possibilities for these players to play big roles on the respective teams that they've been picked up. Additionally, I don't blame them for going to these situations. That's something with the buyout market, is a player becomes a free agent when they get bought out. So theoretically, they should be allowed to go wherever they want to go. If they want to take no money whatsoever, they could just do that in free agency and go to a contender as well. It's just that because it's in the buyout market, people don't like it as much. You have guys like, obviously fans aren't a huge fan of it, but these players want to win rings. The media has pushed this huge narrative of every player needs to win a ring, or whatever else they've done in their career doesn't matter. I could talk about how great Russell Westbrook is in a video, and all people are going to say is, Westbrook, he can't win a real ring, he can't do it himself. And that's because the media has created this narrative that you have to win a ring to be an effective and have an accomplished career as a player. And that's not necessarily true, but that does lead to players trying to team up and win rings. And ultimately, even if it wasn't legacy defining, the goal of the sport is to win a ring. Every player every season is playing to win a championship. And so when they leave and go to these destinations, it makes sense. it makes sense that they want to go where they have a chance to win a ring. Because, especially in the case of Aldridge and Griffin, they're getting older. Aldridge is 36 now. He's getting old, and this might be his last chance to win a ring. He doesn't know if he'll ever be offered an opportunity like this, and he also has been promised, apparently, a pretty decent role in the team. And so this is a chance for him to be an integral part of a championship-winning team, not just be some bench warmer where he's like 41 years old a few years down the line, and he just hops on the coattails of some young star players and wins a ring. This is his chance to establish his legacy more by helping a team win a championship. And so I don't blame the players for it. And you also can't blame the teams. Like, of course, LaMarcus or the Brooklyn Nets are going to want to bring in as much talent as they can. That's what the goal is. The goal is to bring as much talent as possible. I don't necessarily blame the Golden State Warriors for bringing in Kevin Durant. Did I hate the move? Yeah. As a Thunder fan, I would have loved to see KD try and win a ring here because I think if he had stayed, we could have done it the next season. But ultimately, it's not the Warriors' fault to worry about us. It's not the Warriors' fault to worry about the parity of the league. The Warriors' job is to win. Their job is to win the NBA Finals. And they failed the season before, so they said, okay, we might not be good enough. We're going to go out and get Kevin Durant. And that's exactly what they did. It was just a perfect storm of scenarios where they had the cap space and they were coming off that loss and they decided we need to re-up with talent. And that's the job of GMs, that's the job of NBA teams, is to get as much talent as possible. So you can't blame the teams, you can't blame the players, so who can you blame? And the problem is there really is no one to blame. And that's where it comes back to the fact that the buyout market really isn't that impactful. There's a Woj thing in this Bleacher Report article that I was reading earlier. Apparently Woj said that in the past 25 seasons, there have been 39 players that came from the buyout market that have been impactful in the playoffs. 19 of those went to small markets, 20 of them went to big markets. And so that's about as even as you could get. So I really don't know if buyout market reform is the way to go because I don't really think that's going to change anything. It already seems pretty, like, even, I guess you could say. Despite the big names going this season, it seems pretty even. And so there's really nowhere to go. There's nowhere to blame anyone for this whole difference between big markets getting talent and smaller markets struggling to get talent. And ultimately, I really don't think there's a way you can fix it because bigger markets are always going to have more opportunities for players, also financially. Like, a LeBron James went to LA. He doesn't need help marketing or anything, but it does help his brand to go to Los Angeles, and that allows him to get more involved in stuff he wants to do. He's making Space Jam 2 now, which is coming out pretty soon. I might do like a movie review about that whenever that comes out. So it allowed him to go there and chase some opportunities that he wants to chase. Playing in Brooklyn is like something that Kyrie and KD wanted to do. It helps them get closer to New York. It helps improve their brands and stuff like that. So playing on these bigger stages is good for the players, not just winning championships, but it's good for their brands as well. And so I don't blame them for wanting to go to big markets. I don't blame players for wanting to go to Miami and Los Angeles over Oklahoma City because of the weather. Like, that's fair. I wouldn't want to go to somewhere, like, if I was an NBA player, I don't think I'm going somewhere super up north because I like warmer weather. I don't think I'm going to move to somewhere up north because that's just not what I want to do. Even if I do have an opportunity to win a championship, or if that's somewhere a lot of people think I should go, I'm going to make the decision that's best for me. And that's what players are going to do. So you can't blame the players, you can't blame the teams. It's just, there's way too many factors to ever figure this out. And I understand my role as a fan of a small market team. I know the Thunder aren't going to go out and get these crazy free agents. Maybe there's a chance that we could get some buyout market guys if we return to championship contention in a few years. Maybe then some buyout guys will go, okay, I want to join that Thunder team. Even if it's just for half a season, I wouldn't mind living in Oklahoma City for half a season so I can win a championship. Then they could move on. They could try and then go to like a Miami and LA or just somewhere with better weather if they want to do that. But they might join on for a championship run. And so maybe at that point, that's something that could happen. But I'm not holding my breath on OKC getting any big free agents or anything. Because, like I said, it's tough. The only free agents we brought back, or the only really big free agents we've signed, were Westbrook, who just be offered an extension before he became a free agent, and Paul George, who came here because he already was here. I don't think it's very reasonable to think that in a couple years down the line, a Karl Anthony Towns, he's the player I always come up with, I don't know why, a Karl Anthony Towns enters free agency and he looks at us and goes, yeah, I'm going to go to Oklahoma City. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's way more likely that he goes, okay, I want to go to the Clippers, I want to go to the Lakers, I want to go to the Heat, I want to go to the Knicks, I want to go to the Brooklyn Nets. Big markets. It's going to happen, better weather, more opportunities for him to grow as a brand. It just makes sense. And so that's why I don't get super mad about this stuff. I get it. I know what the role is. And that's why it's going to be really sweet when the Thunder manage to win a championship, because it's going to be pretty much all homegrown, and it's going to be like this organization built this. We might go out and trade for some guys, but if we trade for guys, it's because of trades we made as a franchise. Going out and getting free agents just isn't a reality for us. Maybe we could get some lower level ones. We brought in guys recently, like a Mike Muscala. We were going to bring in Alec Burks before he ended up backing out on his contract when we went for more of a rebuild last season, which didn't end up being a rebuild, but that's a whole nother story that I could talk about in a video. Yeah, so I just wanted to talk about this whole small market, big market thing, the buyout market, why I'm not super pressed about it, why players do make the decisions that they make. There's this huge narrative in the league of you have to win a ring. And that does drive a lot of players' decisions, as well as these personal aspirations for their own brands. Where they want to live is also a huge part of things. So there's way too many things to fix it. And I think that this whole buyout market thing is just a smaller microcosm of the bigger issue, which is big markets are always going to win. They're always going to win on these free agencies. They're always going to win on buyout market stuff. They're always going to win on opportunities. It's just the way it works. And there's really nothing you can do, or nothing the league can really do. The league can't force guys to go to small market teams. You can't do that. The best way they can do that is with the salary cap, which is already in place. And I don't think there's really anything you could do. You can't give people penalties for signing too many good players. That's not fair. You can't punish the Golden State Warriors for bringing in Kevin Durant because they did what was best to help benefit their team. So, yeah, this was kind of like a dual type video talking about big markets, small markets, and the buyout market. But let me know what you thought about all of that. Let me know what you think about the whole big versus small market type thing. And yeah, that's about it. Actually, one more thing I'll say is also I hate the narrative that, or part of the narrative that does also force players to these bigger markets, is that you have like media talking heads, personalities talking about how all these small market players need to leave their teams or like free whoever. Like Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal's been they've been saying, oh, get him to the Lakers, get him to the Heat, whatever, get him to the Nets for the longest time, even though he keeps saying he's happy in Washington. And they're like, wow, he can't be that happy. It's got to be like a ploy, or he's got to just be like saving face or whatever. Maybe he's just happy. Maybe he's just happy in Washington, you know? Yeah. So, same thing with Giannis being pushed out of Milwaukee. He made the decision to stay in Milwaukee, try and build something there. And I guarantee if the Bucks win a championship now with Giannis, it's going to be way sweeter than it would have been if Giannis left and they've also found another way to do it. So, just respect players, like their wishes and stuff like that. Players are people too. I know people forget that a lot. And that's about all I have to say. So, I'll see you guys later. Let me know what you think about this. Yeah, real one, say back.